welcome to the first episode of the Quantum Egg podcast, a place where we discuss books, films, plays, and all manner of nerdy, zeitgeisty interests. With me today is Sebastian.
Hello, I am Seb. My pronouns are really anything. He, she, they, I don't mind. I am the executive director of Quantum Egg, and I reply and read most of the emails. So if you're talking to someone, it's usually me.
It sounds like we just shut you away in a cupboard.
You do.
And also with us today is Bo.
Bo.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That's my
at the
name.
same time.
My name's Bo. I use they, them pronouns. I am the company manager of Quantum Egg, which means I do kind of administrative / production kind of tasks. Basically anything that Charlie says wants being done, I do it. And me and Seb do that together, basically.
And I am Charlie, they, them pronouns. And I'm the artistic director, I think is my title.
That
yes.
is your title.
Yes.
Correct.
No, your title.
I defo know my own title. And I focus on content at Quantum Egg. So writing, I'm the one reading anything that gets sent to us, scripts or anything of that sort of description. I'm also the one who is organising this podcast.
Yes.
So if it goes horribly wrong,
We know who to blame.
so here at Quantum Egg, we're all about sci-fi at the moment, and we thought, what better way to launch the podcast than to discuss the latest episode of
Doctor Who!
and what it means for the trans community. For any listeners who have somehow avoided the Whovian phenomenon, Bo, could you surmise what exactly is Doctor Who?
Well, Charlie, Doctor Who is a serialised science fiction TV programme featuring the Doctor, a 900-something-year-old Time Lord who travels through time and space with an often human, often female companion. Originally co-created by Sidney Newman, Cecil Edwin Webber, nicknamed Bunny, and Donald Wilson, the programme first aired on the BBC in 1963 and ran for over 20 years until its cancellation in 1989. The series was later rebooted in 2005 under the direction of Russell T Davies, who saw the programme return to its former, but far more queer, glory. Davies left the programme as head writer in 2010, but has since made a return to the Whoniverse after 13 years under Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall.
Thank you for that entirely improv description of Doctor Who that wasn't scripted at all.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all of the housekeeping under control.
I would say so.
So we can launch right into it, because I know we have a lot of thoughts about the latest episode of Doctor Who. But before we get into that, I want to know about your relationship with Doctor Who. So, Seb, if we go to you first, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
So, Doctor Who was, to be honest, I think it was the first ever science fiction programme I ever watched. I started watching with my mum and my dad in 2005 when they heard the reboot was happening. I remember my mum got very excited. She was like, you need to watch this with me. It's great. It's so silly. You're going to love it. And it's obviously age appropriate, because I would have been 7 at the time. Scary. So yeah, we started it, Christopher Eccleston era. Honestly, one of my favourites, purely for the nostalgia, because it was just so kooky. And I remember it, I just was fascinated by it. And the ritual of sitting down every weekend with my family and watching Doctor Who was a very needed staple in my life.
Yeah, Christopher Eccleston, famously Northern as well.
Of course, yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, and Bo, what is your relationship to Doctor Who?
Well, this is kind of boring, but quite similar to yours, to be honest. It was my dad who told me that it was being rebooted. And I actually remember the moment that... It was one of my first memories. How weird is that? Is him literally, like, telling me that it was happening. And yeah, I was just hooked. I was obsessed. And we'd watch it as a family. Katie was a little bit too young. Katie's my sister. About 4 years younger than me. And my poor mum would have to take her to bed and miss most of the episodes.
So horrible.
I know. And she obviously was like... She's also really into sci-fi, so that was a bit sad. But, we all grew up with it, and Katie... eventually became old enough, and it became like a little family bonding exercise. We'd all watch it together, and we all watched it up until probably the end of Matt Smith's era.
Yeah.
So like
Brave.
yeah, we We were in the trenches with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some opinions on some of the series of Doctor, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. So what I'm getting from both of you, though, is that it sounds like both of your parents already knew about Doctor Who.
Yeah, my mum did. My dad didn't.
Okay.
Because obviously my
Interesting.
dad was Turkish, so
Yeah.
his childhood and teen years were not affected really by Doctor Who at all. I don't know if they showed it there. Maybe they did on some obscure channel, but this was his first time watching it.
Okay.
But my mum, she'd watched the earlier ones. So.
And your dad had watched the earlier ones.
Both my mum and my dad.
Dad,
yeah. Both massive nerds. Yeah.
Okay, so I just think that's cute that, like, you know, there is that generational sort of bridging in that there's what they think is old Doctor Who, and now what we think is old Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Which is the
different.
2005 Doctor Who.
I know.
But yes, in my case, it was slightly different in that my family didn't watch Doctor Who, because my dad was more of a Trekkie fan. And he also likes to watch TV alone. So
No family bonding and TV
no family
time.
bonding. And my mum doesn't, she's not really big into sci-fi. So my first experience of watching Doctor Who was watching a repeat of David Tennant's last season with Rose, over and over again on Dave.
God.
Yeah. I watched that episode so many times.
That's traumatic.
It was. I can't stand it now.
Yeah.
And then catching up eventually when David Tennant, like the current episode that I caught up with was when David Tennant was with Martha. So Martha was my first companion.
Okay.
So not as much as an emotional connection, I'd say, as you two. I don't have the family, bonding experience, but I was still quite young when I started watching it, so it still means a lot.
Yeah. It's so interesting thinking you have no memory of, like, Rose from that. Or, like, very little, like, connection to Rose as a character, because I remember being, like, so invested in her.
Yeah, I didn't really like Rose. I know. And you know what? Retrospectively, I realise I'm wrong.
Your opinions are wrong.
I am wrong, but I was so attached to Martha and then Donna.
Martha's great.
Yeah.
I think she's underrated.
She is. But yes, so we were all there from the beginning-ish to roundabout Matt Smith, towards the end of Matt Smith's era. And now we're back with David Tennant. So, what did you guys think of this episode?
Me first? All right.
Go on.
I had mixed feelings about it. I mean, obviously there was the nostalgia factor that was it's just really nice. Like, going to see something like where it's just designed to make you feel good. I think, like, it was also just amazing to see Donna with a trans child. Like, wow. And for some reason, I loved the Meep. I just thought the Meep was hilarious. And how cursed it was. Like, you know what I mean? It was incredible.
I just want to point out, when we were watching it, the Meep came on screen, because we all watched it together, and Seb immediately went, "It's evil."
Oh, yeah. I looked at its horrific little face, and I was like, that is a villain. I know it is.
So entertaining that the minute it became Disney, they had, like, a Grogu, like, Baby Yoda creature that was evil.
And well, that's why I immediately thought it was evil, because I was like, surely Russell T Davies, like, I'm getting, I mean, obviously he can't say anything about it, but surely slightly anti-Disney vibes.
It would make sense for his character.
It would make sense. And, he does try and subvert things. That's one of the things that he has historically done and probably will continue to do. So I looked at the Meep. I knew that Miriam Margolyes was voicing it, and I was like, that's going to be evil. There's no way.
She does such a wonderful job.
She did. She was really good. Yeah, so my opinions on the episode, again, mixed. I loved everything with Donna. Donna was incredible. Catherine Tate has not changed at all. Like, she just hit the nail on the head so well. The tone of it, the tone with her and, David Tennant, they're such a good duo. They have the best chemistry of any companion I've ever seen. I loved all of that. The little moment where Doctor nearly cries about Wilf made me just emotional, so emotional. But yeah, it was very weird, and we did discuss this while we were watching it, seeing them in HD, like 4K definition, because when I think back on Doctor Who, it had that weird kind of fuzzy, glowy effect, the slightly unreal, it was an unreality away from ours. Whereas this one, I was like, this is a little bit too sharp for me. I'm seeing every line in their face.
Every follicule, like...
Yeah. And as cool as the intro was as well, you know, the new opening with all the effects and everything, it was very techy and very, like... Obviously, it's always been CGI and, you know, special effects and everything, but there was something about the older special effects that were so kind of goofy.
Yeah.
That I loved. I've always loved that. I'm glad they did have practical effects in this with the costumes and everything. That, to me, was a callback to those times and something that I've missed. But, yeah, I do have mixed opinions about the writing and the tone and, you know, the trans inclusion in it. Not because I think it's a bad thing that they did that. Of course it's not. But, you know, one of the phrases I've come across a few times when I've seen other people's reactions is that it seemed ham-fisted in. And that is definitely something I partially agree with. But, I mean, it's Russell T Davies for a start. It's always been slightly ham-fisted. It's always been cheesy. It's always been goofy. I think, you know, once the nostalgia goggles come off for a lot of people and they go back and rewatch things, they'll be like, oh, yeah, this rings quite true for the tone.
I think so. I think a lot of people had knee-jerk reactions
Totally,
to the trans inclusion, or the way it was included, I should say, which we will discuss in the later section. Okay. I personally loved it. I don't know if it's because I have slightly lower expectations of Doctor Who than I think a lot of people do, because I don't have as much rose-tinted glasses with it as much as some people, I would say. I know you guys have quite clear heads when it comes to Doctor Who.
I don't know if that's true. I'm forgiven. Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, but to me, I was watching it, I expected it to be a little bit, I want to say not good, because that's not what I mean.
I know what you mean. It's not like it's not like Oscar winning. It's
I
shouldn't be.
I didn't expect. Russell's writing is always good. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes it's great. I expected good, but I did expect the nostalgia of the Doctor and Donna being reunited, the thing to carry the episode, because I think, you know, it's kind of hard to not rely on that nostalgia when that's clearly, you know, they're very clearly trying to bring in an audience again because numbers have dropped off so badly in terms of viewing. So, I don't know, I imagined it was going to play into that, and it did. And those were my favourite bits. And then with the trans inclusion, I don't know, I just didn't really think that hard about it while I was watching it.
Yeah.
While I was watching it, I was just like, okay, whatever. But when it came to the end and how the transness was related to the plot, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a bit ham-fisted, as you were saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, in terms of how, like, I think I used up so much goodwill on, like, making it through bad episodes during the Moffat and Chibnall era. Like, that I've kind of held up Russell's episodes as, like, on a pedestal because they are so much better. They are, like, phenomenally better than the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it still was.
Yeah.
Like, of course, but, like, I forget there's always duds in a series like that, and that's what makes it so good, because it's a bit of a lottery, isn't it? Every week you're like, oh, what am I going to like? What am I not going to like? And, you know. Well,
that brings us into the next section where we're going to discuss the writing. But so we'll end off with reactions, generally very positive. I will admit I cried. I got quite emotional. I think that was just like childhood nostalgia catching up with me there, and just seeing David Tennant's stupid face and like him doing all of the stupid lines. And
he sells them so well.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's great.
The way he can say utter nonsense as though it's Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. But yeah, in terms of the writing, I think we can all agree we had opinions.
Please, let's talk about that opening.
You guys didn't really like it. Yeah.
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it. When we say the opening, we're talking about sort of the catch-up.
Yeah, when David Tennant and Catherine Tate are like looking into the screen being like, I had this friend. I have a big gap in my memory and I can't remember. It was very dramatic.
I hated it. I was like, I just didn't see why they did it like that. I was like, why can't you just do a what happened before, naughty style, and then take us back to the modern day, give us a little 2 or 3 minutes with the Doctor alone in the TARDIS. Like, it just felt weird to me.
It was camp. It was camp.
It was, I would say, it was very Russell T Davies.
Yeah, it was.
It was it really made me think of Queer as Folk. The way he did that, the way it was just right. I want you to look into the camera, stare into the souls of the viewers, and just tell them things.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah.
And usually in everything else I'd be like, yes. But it just, I don't know.
Was it too cheesy for you?
It was so cheesy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also because I knew everything already, I was like, I mean, I know not everyone will, but I also think if you're coming to watch this episode, you probably do know already basically what's happened.
No, I would argue against that. I think there'll be a generation of children who their parents haven't been getting them to watch Doctor Who because they themselves have not liked Doctor Who for the last couple of years, who have then gone, exactly what happened in 2005 with you guys, and gone, oh, let's watch this thing
Yeah.
that I used to like, and now you're going to watch it because it had David Tennant and Catherine Tate in it again, and Russell T Davies had come back.
Yeah. Well, there's people our age who have kids now, so
that's what I'm talking about.
Raising their own children. Yeah.
So in terms of that, I think about a 7-year-old, watching that and just being delivered this information, and it makes a lot more sense to me why they did it when you take that into consideration.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, so, and I am kind of jumping to the end of the episode, but I think it's important in that I've seen a lot of people complain about the fact that Donna and Rose were able to kind of just let go of the meta-crisis thing happening to them. And a lot of people being like, oh, that's crazy, that's ridiculous, it makes no sense. Please, for the love of God, look back at the older episodes and tell me that that all made sense. Russell T Davies has such a reputation for ex machinaing his way out of, situations. And it didn't always work. I just think of one of the last Master episodes. No, actually, it wasn't at all. I'm lying. It's the Martha era where the Master has, kind of taken over the world. He's done the whole thing with the what were they called? The
Troclophane?
The Toclophane. And then, at the end, David Tennant rises from the ground like Jesus and just kind of does that. There is kind of an explanation, but it's as bad as this one.
Oh my god, because they're all thinking Doctor.
Yeah,
that's the explanation.
It's a telepathic signal. So when this came up and, the two of them had the meta crisis because she'd passed it down through her genes. Love that. And then, they were like, we can just let it go. I was like, that makes sense. However, the thing that was ham-fisted for me was the lines of Rose and Donna being like, well, you're male presenting, so you wouldn't understand this. That was the problem for me with the writing. That's when it became ooh, didn't love that.
I have to agree. I think it was a weird, clunky way of... although I don't think I had as much of a problem with it as a lot of people, because I feel like the Doctor is very much a character who isn't the person that he was before. So I feel like he obviously has that... It's like waking up from a dream. You know what I mean? When he regenerates. This is just my own headcanon.
Okay.
But cool. When he wakes up, when he regenerates, it's he's a different person.
Are you talking about, so in your mind he hasn't really retained any of his experiences as a woman?
I feel like he doesn't relate to it now that he's a man.
Yeah.
It's he's not, well, what I would say is his pronouns would change from she to he, and he now very much is a man. You know what I mean? It is a bit of a grey area, I suppose, because he did experience that. So it's... I can see why people have a problem with it.
Well, yeah, but also there's the suggestion that when it was Jodie Whittaker? Jodie Whittaker, yeah. To me, that was it's not the first time he's been a woman.
Really?
Yeah. I mean...
What, did they say that at some point? I might just missed it or not seen it.
No, I mean, so there's a whole plot point where he was a woman at one point. It's
Oh, the lady... Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name, but yeah.
basically, it's implied that this is not the first time he's been a woman. And I don't think it's played like this is the first time he's been a woman. I mean, the writing was not great anyway, so I don't expect much from it. But I kind of disagree with that he wouldn't have retained any of that emotion or experience.
Yeah, me too, sorry.
The reason why I say that is because he acts like such a man sometimes during Russell T Davies' era. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
With his kind of power trips. And...
Yeah, during Russell T Davies' era, but like he's progressed since then.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right.
Yeah, he has. Like he's able to say that he loves people now. You know, that was a whole thing. In the past, he didn't do that. He implied it, and he showed it with his soul-searching, tragic eyes, as David Tennant does very well.
So well.
But now, like, there is an indication that he's changed and moved on, and that they've become, you know, other.
Yeah.
From before.
And it did just feel a bit like, oh, that was unnecessary as a line.
Yeah, it did. It wasn't good. I'm sorry.
It's a bit girl boss.
It was very girl
yeah.
boss.
Yeah, exactly. And the writing of Rose's character as well. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore the fact that they just had Donna's daughter being a trans girl. I think that's amazing. I think that's lovely. And it could have just been that. But her character was very lacking to me. You know, she didn't do much. And I say that in a way where usually Russell T Davies' characters are what carry the episodes. You know, you've got Donna, you've got Sylvia, her mum. She's such a character herself. Wilf. You know, even Donna's husband, like, he's got his own little bumbling way of being. Whereas Rose felt so vacuous compared to every single other one in the family. And I was
completely agree with that.
She has her little, like, online business and stuff, but I don't know anything about her and the way she conducts herself. It was very blank.
Yes.
She was very reactive. She was very passive. She wasn't... I just didn't get anything from her, and it was like, oh... Interesting.
I would agree. And we're going to get into this a little bit more when we talk about the trans rep and what it means for the trans community at large. In terms, because I would agree that I was surprised that Russell T Davies had not written her character very well or expanded upon it. And I think there was one of the things that this episode was really struggling with. And I think this is more of a writing problem than a representation problem, is it didn't know which of the two, Donna or Rose, it wanted to be the protagonist.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because obviously, Donna's the star of the show, really, with David coming back, you know, and it's, of course, they're going to frame it around, oh, it's Donna and the Doctor again, and it's great, but the way that Rose was invented? The way she was introduced really reminded me of the way OG Rose was introduced. You know?
Yeah.
Just in the sense of, like, it did for a bit seem to shift to her perspective. You know, she finds the Meep. You know, she's talking about the fact that she's trying to make money to help her mum and dad out. We go to her little shed and see what she's been doing. And it seems to build to the fact that, oh no, this is the new generation. This is our new sort of protagonist. And then it stops and it goes back to Donna.
Yeah.
And I think that was a mistake. I think either she should have been treated like a full side character, like the dad was, and just given like a few quirks and a, you know, sort of give her something.
Yeah.
Or she should have been our everyman.
Yeah.
Because with an everyman, with Rose, like when you think OG Rose, I should say, you know, when you think about her personality, she doesn't have any like really defining traits other than she's very caring.
Yeah,
you know,
she is, and she uses her background a lot to influence, you know, the way that she interacts with like other characters kind of like her on screen.
Yeah.
But I do know what you mean, yeah. She wasn't like super bold and quirky and like Donna, like, all right, spaceman and all that. She was a bit more subdued.
Yeah. She was an everyman, and because of that, I think with this new Rose, it didn't quite strike that balance of either this is a side character or this is a protagonist.
Yeah.
And because of that, it kind of fell flat. But in terms of the episode itself, the plot, I should say, with the Meep, did you guys enjoy it?
I did. It was simple, to be honest. Like, it was, but that's kind of what I used to love about them anyway. You know, it was a little bit of a kind of, oop, actually the Meep is evil. But I think that's appealing to younger audiences as well. And this is what people forget. It's like, this is a children's TV show, really. You know, it always kind of has been. You look at the older episodes, again, and when I say the older episodes, I do mean like 2005 onwards. Sorry, classic Who fans. But because I was a child at that time, I can look back and recognise it more now, how simplistic a lot of the plot points were and how they weren't this revolutionary, crazy thing. When they were, it was amazing. It was like, whoa, mind blown. But with this, it felt like reminiscent of that.
Yeah, and I would say for the classic Who fans, in its inception, it was very carefully made to appeal to families.
Yeah.
So with that, your first layer is appealing to children. And then everything on top of that, the inside jokes and things, that's for the adults.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, we did lose that a little bit with Moffat and Chibnall's writing.
We lost that a lot.
Yeah. I felt like it was appealing first to an older audience, and then if kids liked it, they liked it.
It became so edgy. It was so, like, drama. It was like Riverdale. I was like... Dudes, calm down. You know, it was really weird, and like they wanted to be all sexy and crazy, and it's like
And American.
Sorry, but yeah, it was. Oh.
Like, I'm very glad that Americans kind of saw the value in Doctor Who, but I feel like Doctor Who then thought it had to chase Americans with like the way it was written and everything else.
Yeah, because it was different.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think that was necessary.
No.
Well, did you know, little fun fact, that I think it was after the last film they did. Sorry, this is just an aside, but it's interesting.
No, go on.
They wanted to reboot Doctor Who, but set in America.
Really?
And it just did not work.
No.
That would not work at
No.
all. It's not. No.
I'm like, I know this sounds weird, but like America's too big for the Doctor.
It's always been, this is the thing, it's always come down to that family core. That's what its roots have always been, and this is why Russell T Davies made it work, because Rose had her family, Martha had her family, Donna had her family, like, you know, that was so central to it. So when Amy and Rory came along, I didn't know anything about them. Where were their parents?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where
Siblings?
Siblings? Anyone? Anything? No, it was just, it made no sense. And there was a thing about
There's
Amy's
a reason why
parents,
Amy doesn't have
but
parents.
it felt
but
like an
Is there?
excuse.
yeah. That, well, basically they all fell through the crack in her bedroom wall. So it's one of the mysteries around the season. So, you know, there's the whole
It's
thing
very
about the
silly.
crack in space-time.
I'm sorry, that just sounds like an excuse not to write characters.
No, it was,
but they-
it was lazy.
Yeah.
Well, they were eventually brought back for Amy, right? The mum and the dad and stuff, but they didn't. It was a bit late, and they didn't really have any like defining.
They didn't have characters.
Yeah,
there was
they
no
were just
character.
you know, stereotypical mother and father. Like it was. Yeah, there wasn't much there. So
Hated it.
The
Sorry.
rage on Seth's face.
I just think about it, I'm like, what a downgrade.
the girl who waited.
Don't give me that. The girl who waited, the impossible girl.
Well, I'm sure we'll do an episode where we moan about Chibnall and Moffat's writing.
Yeah.
But in terms of this episode, I did feel like it was a breath of fresh air compared to what we've got recently because of that family factor.
Totally.
You know, and the lightheartedness of it.
Yeah. It wasn't too serious, you know, it's not like, I don't know, they weren't carrying, you know, all the trauma of, like there was hints to it with, you know, the mum continuously trying to stop Donna from remembering, but it was done in a way where it was like, it was quite funny. You know, just her being like, oh, this man again, oh, and her just going up to the doctor and being like, you need to go. You know, that was really good. I loved that.
We got a classic David Tennant slap as well.
We did. Sylvia did slap him.
Yeah. One day I'm going to talk about the casual slapping of the Doctor because it
It
feels
is a bit odd.
I'm like, okay, you're exploring some things in this, writers.
It's always a middle-aged woman as well, like a mother.
Yeah.
Well, it was with the Russell T Davies era. With the Moffat and Chibnall era, it was always younger women or, you know...
Yeah,
the,
true.
I feel like that's saying something very different, isn't it?
Wait, what?
Like with I feel like with the slapping of like a mother slapping him, it's like, oh
yeah,
he
yeah.
deserves it. Whereas it's a bit kind of like,
Well, he usually deserves to be slapped.
Oh, the Doctor did take Rose away for like 6 months.
There was more reason. I'll give you that. It felt more like there was a reason for it, not necessarily like deserved.
Yeah.
But like the casual abuse, you know.
Yeah, it's where you draw the line between slapstick and it's just okay to hit him because he's a man.
I always read it as slapstick.
Yeah, but why aren't women slapped in the same way?
Well, that would feel weird.
Series?
Yeah,
exactly.
That would feel weird. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So I think there is a discussion to be had there.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll move on because I think we've done the writing to death. So again, sort of summing up, it was fun, it was enjoyable, major plot holes, but it's what we expect of Russell T Davies.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I think people being shocked at plot holes, again, haven't watched the show in a very long time.
Yeah, they need to go back and rewatch some things, like maybe that whole Martha Master era, because it was, whew, holy.
Russell has never cared about the plot making sense.
No, I don't think it has to.
As he shouldn't. Slay.
It's a two-hearted 900-year-old Time Lord in a box who flies around and never changes his underpants as far as we can see. So.
Or he's like a cartoon character and he has the same like outfit lined up every day in his wardrobe.
Oh yeah, like Dexter's Lab, they used to do that. It was always one of the things that made me laugh. But yeah, to surmise, you're right.
Okay, so that brings us on to quite nicely. We are going to talk about the trans rep now, but I want to talk about it in a way where we link it to obviously the current political climate regarding transness in the UK, i.e. Turf Island. And also, you know, is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? Is it somewhere in between? As with most things, it probably will be somewhere in between. Talk about your own feelings about it and sort of how you feel about it inside versus how you feel about it because you're thinking of straight people watching it or cis people watching it. Seb, do you want to start?
Sure. So, one thing with me, personally, is that I am actually a trans actor. Woohoo. What a great time to be doing that. So, obviously, I have quite an opinion on it with regards to that, because I am so gunning for good trans rep in everything. You know, any audition I get, especially if it's for a trans role, which it usually is, let's be real, the first thing I look at is, how is this written? How is this character written? Is this character a character, or is it a token of transness? Which isn't always a bad thing. However, if the character doesn't come first, it just seems like rainbow washing. You know, it's just an excuse for the showrunners to be like, oh look, we've done the rep, we've put that in, be happy, be satisfied, Bob's your uncle. With this episode, I don't think it was tokenism in the way that it's a bad thing. So Rose's introduction, you know, it wasn't immediately like, this is Rose, my transgender daughter. You know, she transitioned at the age of 13 and now she's doing this and this, which does sometimes happen. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Some of the scripts I've read, oh my God. I think that the intention behind it was really, really good. I can see exactly why Russell T Davies did what he did, especially in the current political climate. You know, like I said, the introduction of her was amazing and stuff. And then when they actually did bring up the trans stuff, it was quite subtle. And I did see some people on Twitter saying they hadn't even noticed it at first. Obviously, we're sensitive to it because we are trans. So we're always going to have that heightened sensitivity. Heightened and hyper, that's what I was trying to say. So it's always going to mean more to us. However, I thought it was quite a good way of introducing it casually to a cisgender audience and just not making it a big deal. The thing that made me laugh and made me think that he was definitely doing like a middle finger to the media is that line where Rose just goes, non-binary, you know? Like, if that was not meant to be funny, then he's done something very wrong and needs to rethink the tone completely. Because it was hilarious. It was so funny. Also, the way they yassify her while it happens. Well, she's just, like, ascending for some reason. I think as well, with Russell, particularly, Russell T Davies, you know, I'm very confident that he's an ally. Oh, 100%. And even though his characterization of Rose, because it was so empty, did feel a bit tokenistic, I don't think
she was intended as a token.
No.
And I don't think he tokenizes transgender people because, as we know, he has included in previous episodes lots of gender diverse opinions.
Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and variations thereupon. One of my favourite lines from the episode Midnight. Actually, Stephen Moffat did that one. However, he was under Russell's, guidance. So.
But the point is, there is a conscious, when he talks about the future in Doctor Who, it is non-gendered or gendered differently to how the current world is gendered. And it's more loosey-goosey with gender and sexuality. Shout out to Captain Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Best character after Donna.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And he's had that. And he's also, we know that Cassandra is trans.
Cassandra.
Great rep.
The wonderful flap of skin who we all love and adore. She just has this really casual line where she's like, when I was a little boy. And, it's not mentioned again. It's not thought of. But that's fine. That's how it kind of should be,
Yeah, and I want to touch on something, which is trans villainy.
Trans villainy.
In regards to Rose and to Cassandra. Because when Cassandra was introduced, which I think was 2006, 2007?
I think it was 2005, actually.
Was it 2005? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes, it was Chris's
Chris
episode.
Freckleston,
yeah, where she's first introduced. But obviously, she's a villain. And there's a throwaway line that means that she's trans.
Mm-hmm.
And Rose, who we've been introduced to in the current time, is very much not a villain.
Oh, yeah.
Would characterise as a hero. So, in terms of the way that people think about trans people now and the way that we've been attacked, I would say, in the media by politicians, by TERFs, I can see why Russell might have been a bit hesitant to make Rose unlikable or to do quote-unquote bad representation.
Yes, and bad representation does not always mean writing a trans character that is morally grey or, a villain or something, but it could be taken that way.
Yes.
It's a very sticky area right now. It's very difficult to navigate, and I can see why people are afraid to do it.
It is, and I want to read something from a book called In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, which is fantastic and everyone should read it. And it's just a little mini essay on queer villainy. And she has this to say on page 50. Just give me a moment to find it. As it turns out, queer villains become far more interesting among other gay characters, both within a specific project or universe and the zeitgeist at large. They become one star at a larger constellation. They are put in context. And that's pretty exciting, even liberating. By expanding representation, we give space to queers to be, as characters, as real people, human beings. They don't have to be metaphors for wickedness and depravity or icons of conformity and docility. Is that how you say it?
I don't know, but sure.
They can be what they are. We deserve to have our wrongdoing represented as much as our heroism, because when we refuse wrongdoing as a possibility for a group of people, we refuse their humanity.
Yeah, that's the sticking point. Sorry, this is something I wanted to touch on before, but I didn't. It's the humanity of it. It's humanising them. And I am just waiting for a role that I can come across, an audition where they really do that. It's really rare. It's really hard to find, unless it's by another trans author or just someone who understands it really well and has done their research and thought about it and talked to trans people. But that's far and few between at the moment, it seems.
Yeah. I was also going to say that even Cassandra, who is a villain at the start, she, in her last episode, she does kind of get humanised because, she has that very trans thing where she goes into the Doctor and then she goes into Rose and she goes into all of these different bodies, and it is kind of problematic, but there's a trans thing in her of chasing the ideal, chasing the perfect body or whatever that I did kind of relate to a little bit.
When you think about it, she is the most human. She's the last human. Yeah. She's the last pure human. That's her whole thing. In that first episode where she's introduced, she is the last human. That is what she goes on about. And she's a trans person.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's had to evolve to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's that part at the end where, what's his name? the guy who follows her around, Chip, where Chip kind of goes back in time to meet Cassandra when she was at her peak, and it's like really like touching, and she's like obviously a nice person and like holds him, and it's like really emotional for some reason.
But that's the point. She's a full-bodied character, and like, you know, that throwaway line, "Oh, I used to be a boy," you can ignore it if you want, but when you don't, like you say, it introduces really interesting things and like ideas about her character. And I do think that's what's missing with Rose, I will say.
100%. Like, you can see that he's attempted to show her struggle when she gets shouted at on the street. Yeah. And, you know, she gets referred to as weird by the Meep, of all things.
Meep is transphobic.
But it's...
But also non-binary.
Yeah, what was that about?
Uses the definitive article.
Yeah. But it's lost. That attempt at real humanity in a full-bodied character is lost in the way that she does just fall flat.
Yeah.
Because there is no clear definition of what role she plays, really.
Yeah. But it is lost for something, I think, in this situation.
What is it lost for?
I think it's lost for politics.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that's a completely bad thing, because I have family members who have watched this episode who don't necessarily have the best views when it comes to trans people, who really enjoyed it, enjoyed the episode.
And that's great. And it both warms my heart and frustrates me, because it's like, wow, I can't wait for the day where we're just normal people and things, and anyone won't bat an eye.
Yeah, where you don't have to be so careful.
Yeah, and the characters don't always have to be kind of either A, victims, or B, heroes, to be accepted and thought of as, oh wow, that's really good trans rep. It's like, let's have an actual story. Let's have an arc. I want an arc.
Yeah, I want a nasty trans.
A nasty
Bring in the nasties.
I was just thinking, I think that's why so many people had such a visceral reaction to it, is because one of the things that I loved about Russell's era was that there were so many queer characters that were just queer, that were just trans, that were just gay. And it was fine because it's another world, it's in the future, you know, and no one bats an eye. And I loved that, and I felt like I could escape into it. Whereas, like, for this, obviously, it's like, oh, we have to remember that things aren't good because this has to happen in this episode for people to understand that how bad it is for us. And, like, being reminded of that in the escapist show that you love from your childhood is kind of jarring.
It kind of sucks.
Yeah.
A little bit, but it's like you say, it's necessary, unfortunately.
In this country right now, it absolutely is necessary.
And what I'm hoping, fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything crossed, is that this is just an introduction to what Russell is going to do with queer identity and transness in the later series. You know, there's lots of room and opportunity to have more, to explore more than just what we've got with Rose at the moment.
Yeah.
So, fabulous. Okay, well, that's the end of talking about writing. We're going to go on to our last section now, where Seb is going to surprise us with some tweets.
So, here we go. I've chosen some tweets from public reactions to the episode, which really, really do make me laugh. The first one is from Paul Embury, who is some kind of public figure, I think, judging by the amount of likes and retweets and stuff like that. And he says, Doctor Who episode this evening featured a discussion about chosen pronouns. TV drama has become a relentless moral lecture delivered by woke producers and executives. Nutters, frankly. And a reply to this says, exactly right, Paul. Everyone posts their favourite Doctor Who quote from before it went woke. I'll start. And the quote he chose was from the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, where he just says, kill yourself.
That's Cam. Here's an idea. Kill yourself.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it's always been quote unquote woke.
Yeah. And always quite moralising as well.
Yeah, there's an episode in 1972 where the Doctor and his companion have a discussion about Alpha Centaurised pronouns, and they say something along the lines of, you know, oh, he is this, he is that, and then the female companion says, what if it's a she? And the Doctor says, it's an it, actually. And it's kind of a whole little thing.
Non-binary?
Yeah, non-binary character. It's not said as much, but, it amounts to that, really. Sorry, go on.
God, no, I'm not over the nutters. Also,
Nutters.
like, it being an essay, if I remember right, that whole conversation is 5 seconds long.
Yeah. And it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's not exactly taking it very seriously.
No, because the Meep's reply is, the Meep always follows the definitive article, or whatever it says.
It's not like,
Yes.
actually, I'm really offended because you didn't use my chosen pronoun. I'm so sorry, Meep. You know what I mean?
It's obviously being played quite light and loose.
Oh, it is.
And,
How it should be. Like, let's be real.
But no, socialist nutters!
Yeah. Someone else on Twitter says, yes, Doctor Who, the gender fluid, sometimes asexual, omnisexual alien who constantly goes around fighting oppressive regimes across the universe and has frequently stated the incompetency of bigotry has gone woke. Which is so true.
That was poetry.
That was one of my favourite ones. It's really underappreciated.
It just makes it just made me think, like, when you, especially the last quote, like, the whole thing is that the Daleks are a metaphor for fascism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor fighting
and
conformity and uniformity and people always being the same. Like, it's literally so political. And, like, him fighting against the Time Lords as well is, like, trying to, like, pin him down and oppress him or whatever. Like, it's always been like that. Why are people so unable to see things in the things they watch?
Do you know why? Because none of these people care about Doctor Who.
No, true. Yeah.
Oh, here's a very dramatic one.
Oh,
which really
hit
made
me,
me laugh.
please.
It says, happy 60th anniversary to the real Doctor Who, and farewell to an iconic series poisoned by talentless hacks and fake fans who care more about representation than talent and story. It was a good run, but it's the end. Doctor, I let you go. And then hashtag RIP Doctor Who.
So this was before they stuck in through Chibnall, which is like, I would have thought they would have stopped a lot sooner if that was their issue. You know?
No, well, but this is the power of turfism in this country.
Yeah.
Is the thing.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't watch anything and they were just pretending that they'd been watching up until that point.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one that really shows the true IQ of any TERF. So they say, why is Rose the Trans played by a non-trans actress? If old Davros was ableist, then this is just hypocrisy. Not hypocrisy, hypocrisy. And then someone replies, Yasmin Finley is trans. She was also in Sex Education. To which the original poster replies, all her bios say actress. That means female in English.
Oh, they really just expose themselves, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They really do.
I mean, I love that replier, but she also wasn't in Sex Education.
She wasn't?
No, she was in Heartstopper.
She was in Heartstopper.
So that's also wrong.
Shows what I know.
But you know what? Their heart was in the right place.
Yeah, the heart was in the right place. But yeah, hilarious. And finally, this one, in which they open with a Donald Trump quote.
Oh, God!
It says, everything woke turns to, I'm going to say sugar. Obviously, that's not what they said. And that's the Donald Trump quote. And then it says, here is a latest scene from the BBC's Doctor Who, where a non-binary character meets an alien and they, them. First reaction is to ask for pronouns. Normal people are sick of this nonsense. Define normal. Please, I beg you.
But herein lies the problem, isn't it? That, unfortunately, even the most neutral, most positive representation of a trans person on screen is met with such visceral.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you exist, as long as trans people exist anywhere in a space where they are perceived, that's it. That's the end.
At the end of the day, all of these people would have complained even if Rose had just existed in the episode. You know what I mean? And there was no, like, mention of her being trans, except maybe a throwaway remark. So might as well go all out.
Go all out, rubber their faces in it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, you know, I want to dream that one day we can have characters that are trans and not worry about how the public is going to perceive them or whether they're going to Buffalo Bill them, you know. But at the moment we don't, and that's why I'm willing to cut Russell T Davies some slack.
Me too. I think overall he did a really good job, and it was necessary for the way trans issues are discussed in this country.
Slay.
Fabulous. Okay.
Sorry.
Slay.
I need to stop saying that. It stopped being ironic a while ago.
So I think that sums up all of our thoughts on this latest episode. Obviously 2 more are coming out, so we'll have more thoughts on those. Probably, almost definitely.
I think most definitely.
Most definitely. So Seb, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, so if you enjoyed any of what you heard today, please drop us a follow on Twitter at QuantumEggCIC and Instagram, which is at quantum.egg. We're also currently accepting submissions for an evening of short plays centred around the sci-fi theme of algorithm. So if there are any playwrights interested in sinking their teeth into a Doctor Who adjacent theme, please don't hesitate to get involved. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more.
The Quantum Egg podcast is a project from Quantum Egg Theatre Company, a theatre company based in Manchester. Trans and neurodivergent-led, we make radical, queer, groundbreaking theatre in tandem with talented emerging artists in our community. To find out more about our mission, visit the link in the description. Quantum Egg is a volunteer-run company. If you liked what you heard today and believe in our mission, you can donate the price of a cup of coffee by visiting our coffee page. That's ko-fi. Link also in the description. You can also help us out by giving us a 5-star review and telling us what you thought of today's episode. The Quantum Egg podcast is hosted by Charlie Wrigg, featuring Bo Warner and Sebastian Emerson. Edited by Bo Warner, sound designed by Anastasia Zhikova.